fourth game of the ChessBase India Originals death match between Vidit Gujrathi and Anish Giri. It's Chess960 time. Vidit is currently leading the match with a score of 2-1. This is 7 minutes plus 2 seconds increment, and you can see that the pieces are all scrambled up on the last rank. Notice how the queens are on the side of the board and the king is on c8 and c1. The rook is on the side, but the knights are together and the bishops are here. So it's a very crazy position. It's a very complex one, and you can see Vidit taking his time in the opening to get acquainted with it. Meanwhile, Anish has simply blitzed out his moves. He's confident about this position. They were not told about this position before the game began, so they had no way of knowing that out of all the positions possible, it was going to be this one. But still, Anish is very confidently moving, and look at Vidit. He's got his queen up the board. Now imagine that if you were to play a move, simple move like e3, queen takes f1 is a free piece. That's why Chess960 is so interesting. It leads to unusual and unseen patterns. Anish now taking his time a bit and goes d3. He says, I'm going to push my pawn later on to e4 perhaps. I don't know. But it's just a good move to limit the queen here. And Vidit gets his knight out on the board as well. Here there's a very unusual move. That move is b4. Look at this. If you take here, I'll just go and chop off this pawn on g7. Has that motive been seen there by Anish? Is he going to play b4? And that's why you need very alert skills here. No, he goes c3. And now Vidit is doing pretty fine because his opponent missed this move b4. But how does Vidit continue? How does he solve the problem of each one of his piece? He goes e6 here, which is a fine move. Knight to d2 by Anish. On the clock, Anish has close to a minute's edge. And also positionally, he's doing pretty well. He has these b4 ideas, also the e4 ideas somewhere. So all is looking good. Meanwhile, long castling in this position is pretty simple. I'm going to show you. It's just all about moving the rook from here to d1. But short castling is going all the way to g1 with your king and the rook coming up. And of course, the path in between has to be cleared. Now with it down to 5 minutes on the clock, he has to decide what to do about his knight, about his bishop on g8, the rook on h8. What is his queen doing here? Chess960 is not easy, guys. It's also known as the Fischer Random chess. The great world champion Bobby Fischer had come up with this idea. Now knight to b3 played by Anish. He's looking at this square here on c5. Now a very good move for Vidit here would be to go knight g6, attacking the pawn on f4. Yes, you are afraid of knight c5, but after queen a8 there are no problems. Instead, he goes knight to d7, stopping knight c5. And now after bishop c2, the position is roundabout even. Anish is getting all his pieces out. He's trying to sort of get his knights on good squares, and so does Vidit now. Look at his move h6. He's making square for his bishop to come down this long diagonal. Creative play at its best. Now a very good idea would be to play bishop f2, and then you can short castle in this position. Anish now decides to take his time. He has 5 minutes, 50 seconds. What is a good positional decision? Is it to play this knight to c5, or is it to play this knight to e5? There are two questions. Well, he decides to go with knight to e5, but this is a mistake. This is a big mistake. The reason is that Vidit can take this knight, and which he does. Brilliant move by Vidit Gujrathi. He takes. Now Anish must take back with the pawn. He's thinking there. And now everyone would imagine that black has to move this knight. But instead Vidit goes for this check. All of a sudden, out of the blue, comes this check. You can move the king, but then you have lost your castling rights. The king becomes pretty weak on d1. The knight comes to f5 then. Would be a very good position here. Also, e3 knight f5 is something that you do not like. So Anish is left with very little options now. Either he goes king d1 or e3, or the last chance is to go knight d2, which is to block the check. And I think as a player who is used to castling in normal games, you want to play knight d2 so that you can keep your options open to castle at some point in the game. But Anish doesn't want any surprises anymore. This check did come as a surprise to him. He goes knight d2, and now Vidit has an amazing move here. No, he goes knight f5, which is not bad. It's a good position for black, but look at this move, knight e4, taking advantage of the pin. And if you take here, queen takes e2. But it's not the end, because white can long castle defending the knight. But in comes queen g2, the rook is hanging. And after bd4, you take here. If rook takes, then h1 is hanging. These crazy lines were possible, and black would have been better. But instead, Vidit goes here, knight f5, and misses this opportunity, which was very tough to find. But he didn't look for it there. He played his move pretty quickly because he realized that this is a good move in the position. Just going knight to f5. Now Anish can think about doing long castling here, because that would be quite okay. You just have to move your king like this, and touch the rook, and the rook can come on the other side to d1. The king remains on c1. This is the normal castling position in normal chess. So that is what is maintained here as well. But I think Anish does not like that possibility. He goes g4. He attacks the knight here. Now Vidit, of course, has to move the knight, but actually this knight may not even move here. Look at this move now, d4. And you might ask, but what's happening? Why d4? If I take, the move is queen c6, and all of a sudden the rook is trapped. You can't block with the knight because the knight is pinned. Again, some unusual tactics there, just so typical of chess960. Knight e3 came on the board. Vidit playing this, which actually allows Anish to get back into this game now. With h4, if he can find the move h4, because the bishop cannot move away from the diagonal, the bishop will take it. Take the knight. And yes, Anish is getting his hand towards the h-pawn. He wants to play it, just making those last thoughts. Also, look at the time. He's gone below Vidit Gujrathi there. He has 3 minutes 18 seconds. Vidit has 3 minutes 52 seconds. Now the bishop has to move. But where? Bishop f4. That is a possibility. Yes, he plays bishop f4. Fantastic move here. Because now the knight is defended, but I think Anish can take. Bishop takes and play rook f1, and this position is roundabout even. He goes b4, and this is not a great idea. Maybe it's possible, but there's already a possibility that you can take. King takes and play bishop e5. But what Anish wants is maybe b5 and sort of closing this position. And if queen d6, then he wants to even push further with b6, using his bishop and rook here. So that's the reason why Vidit has a decision to make. Should he take the bishop here and then the pawn, or should he take on b4, which is also possible. But then after cb4, the queen opens up her defense to the e5 pawn. 3 minutes left for both players with such a complicated position. It's not going to be easy at all. They are trying their best to navigate the complexities. Vidit takes on d4. Now cb4 is the best move here. But Anish takes with the rook. He takes with the rook. And now the e5 pawn could hang. Yes, he takes on c2. The queen is attacked, so it has to be taken back. And now Vidit can win a pawn. So Vidit is just simply a pawn up. Clearly better position here. The only thing left for black to solve is to think about this bishop and get the king to safety. It's pretty safe now, to be fair. With 2-1 lead in the match and also a dominating position, Vidit is doing amazingly well in this death match. Who would have imagined that playing against such a world-class player as Anish, he would build up such a imposing lead right at the start. Bishop c5 played on the board. This first segment of 4 games is known as the original segment, where players indulge in blindfold chess, Ritz chess, which is a mixture of rapid and blitz, in No castling chess, and chess960. Bishop h7 played, the bishop pops out, and the knight comes out to f3. The idea here is to drive this bishop off this diagonal so that later on you can open up the position with c4. Bishop d6 played, and Anish takes it. Vidit has to decide whether to take with the pawn or with the queen. Clearly taking with the queen gives him a huge advantage. He's now a clear pawn up. Black king, white king is weak. His bishop is looking strong. Everything looks great. Rook h to b1 played. The only hope that Anish has is to maybe put some pressure down the b file and hope that this slightly unconventional position confuses Vidit. Because otherwise, Vidit is in complete control. He plays b6, and you can also see his confidence rising with every single move that he's playing. How does Anish muddy the waters further? Both players down to 2 minutes on the clock. Where do you go? Oh, he wants to push the c4 pawn. Oh, he pushes. And guys, look at this. The queen is now attacking the g7 pawn. How do you defend it? Because if you were to take dc4, then after rook c4, white is doing pretty fine. So it's important to think about the g7 pawn. Is he going to play f6? Is he going to play rook g8? He can defend that in multiple ways with it down to 1 minute 40 seconds. And what is he planning to play? He wanted to make a move there, just hesitating a bit, making sure, oh, it touches the king, and it's a short castle. Oh my god, we didn't really think about that move at all. So all of a sudden, the king is safe, g7 is defended, black played this amazing move. Now it's important not to trade the queens, because then white gets some domination in the center. Queen d7, another fantastic move played by Vidit. a4 pawn is a weakness. I think it's all about getting to now somehow solidify your position in some way or the other. c5 played on the board, and you can't take it because the rook is hanging. f6 is a good move here, but with it goes rook a8, and this allows Anish to get this pawn. I think with it takes it back, and Anish plays queen d4. He not only defends his a4 pawn, but he also puts more pressure on b6. Here a very good idea is to play f6 and e5. Get those central pawns rolling on the board. But Vidit is getting a bit worried here. He's low on time. He plays his rook to c8. Anish gets his king to d2. All of a sudden, it's no longer so clear as to who's better. Still, it should be black, right? Because black is a pawn up. King is safe. Everything looks good. Goes queen c7, and he wants to enter the position via c2. But it's not a fatal check because the king has two squares to go to. Either e1 or e3. And he plays his pawn to g5. He wants to open up the position there. What else to do? h5, keeping it closed here. The bishop needs to open itself up, and that could have been possible with f6, e5, later e4. But with this pawn coming up to g5, f6 has become very difficult to engineer. King e3, good move here by Anish. As of this moment, white has good compensation for the missing pawn. Now maybe rook e8 with the idea of e5. But then the b6 pawn is falling. Oh, he goes rook e8. He plays it. He wants to now push e5. Knight e5 is definitely an option here to just clamp down that possibility. Well, Anish has 50 seconds while Vidit is down to his last 10 seconds. Vidit has thought a bit too much. After queen b6, Vidit must take now. He's 6 seconds on the clock. Rook takes b6, takes on a4. Pawn down. is Anish, but rook b8 back rank threats. Rook goes back. Now the rooks cannot be traded. There's no back rank made. The rooks have to be traded perhaps. What does Anish do? Will he come back with his rook? No, he takes one. Rook takes a8. And he moves his other rook to b7. He's gone to the 7th rank. He wants to go to e5. He wants to put pressure here. Maybe g6 in the air. Vidit says nothing doing. I'm playing f6. And to stop the knight from coming to e5. Because now white can go knight d4 and put pressure on e6. But instead he takes, pawn takes, knight to d4 now. e5 by Vidit. Knight jumps into c6. The king does look a little weak with the black pawns. He goes d4 check. Anish hesitating. King f3 but then plays king f2. Rook comes in. Now the d3 pawn is hanging. What to do? Oh, it's getting nervous here. Clearly 5 seconds for Vidit. 26 seconds for Anish. Rook a1 played. Anish doing something on the board. Knight e7 check. King f8. And he brings his knight to d5. He's attacking the f6 pawn. How do you defend it? No, he goes bg8. And look at Vidit's trap. If you take here rook f1 check and you lose the knight. Even with just few seconds on the clock, like 5 seconds, Vidit is being ultra resourceful. But here's the point. You can go for a check on b8. And Anish down to 5 seconds now. Anish needs to move. He has 4, 3, 2. Oh, he makes this move instantly. And king g7, he gives a check. He could have taken the bishop and exchanged there. f6 and h5 pawns would have fallen. Ooh, what nervous chess. Anish had forgotten that he was also going to be low on time. Knight f5, bishop e6, black fighting back here. King f7, and all of a sudden the king is moving up the board. King g6 coming in. Yes, he plays it. He's winning. Vidit is winning here. Rook check. King g7 is a winning move, but he plays bg4. Rook takes f6. Knight g8 would have been better, but he goes king g7. And now black is again better because now rook h2 and he wins the e2 pawn. King to g1. He goes 3 seconds. Takes on e2. There's a 2-second increment per move. So the players will not run out of time if they can make the moves on time. But this is such pressure. Because Vidit is leading. Anish needs to fight back. He doesn't want to lose another game. Bishop f5 attacking the d3 pawn. And now knight to b4 defending it. White is passive. Black king is coming up the board. Everything looks set for Vidit to win. Anish does not have much time. He's also a little bit more nervous than Vidit. Vidit's Black Lotus seems to have come to good news. Oh my god, did he have just few seconds? Rook f8, king g8, knight is hanging. He needs to move the knight. No, he's looking at the rook. He plays rook e8 blunder because the bishop can move with a check. Yes, it does. And the knight is lost. Oh my god, Vidit Gujrathi wins the knight. He's now a piece up. Complete piece up. All that needs to be done is to take care that he doesn't blunder something. And he is a total bishop up. Bishop e2 is attacking the d3 pawn. The king comes to c5, rook a4. And the rook comes back, but now the bishop blocks the rook. So the king now can freely come into the position. And here king f4, king is coming to g3 and Anish Giri resigns. Vidit Gujrathi now leads 3-1 in this match. What a start to the death match 1.0. Unbelievable.